If you look at people who have brought about actual change, that is Saturn. When people are often like coming to me for readings and they read something on the internet, it's a lot of fear mongering and it's just like, oh, this placement, they're going to have a bad year. And I'm like, some of it is a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
People have this, again, binary perspective towards these things, that something is good or bad. What people don't understand, any time which is materialistically bad, you will see it's always spiritually good.
She says this very interesting thing where she's just like, imagine yourself, you're in a cage, we're in a jail, whatever it is. The key is in your hand to get out of that jail or that cage. You have that vision to do it. That is why Jyotish is related to Jyoti, right? You have that light to do it within your hands. Now it is up to you to get out of that jail. And that exactly, to me, that key is Jyotish. If you look at the charts of many millionaires or billionaires, whoever it is, Scorpio moon comes up debilitated, no nourishment, nothing. They move through life with such a lightning speed. You have that key in your hand. What are you doing with your time? Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Ganganpate Namaha. Vagdevi Chvidmahi Vidinchi Patni Dhimahi Tanno Vani Prachodayat. शुकप्रियाय विद्महे कामेश्वराय धीमहि तन्नो श्यामा प्रचोदयात् ओम ज्योतिर्मयाय विद्महे रश्मिमालाय धीमहि तन्नो सूर्यः प्रचोदयात्. All right, let's begin.
Okay, yeah. So before we begin, would you like to explain what exactly you did here?
Okay.
The invocation, what is this all about? Yeah.
My favorite part, I love doing invocations. To me, invocations are all about sort of waking up that deity within you. It's like when someone in the morning, I do my Sandhya and everything, that's fine. But when I start something, even when I'm doing my readings, I usually chant these mantras. It's in the Brihat Parashada Hoda Shastra also, that you have to do Vandana for 3 deities, which is Vishnu, Saraswati and Surya. So the first one is obviously to my Guru. Everything I do is at my Guru's feet, offered to her, all of those things. Second is to Ganpati, because Ganpati balances your Mooladhara Chakra and he's the one, he is the Mooladhara Chakra. So it's kind of necessary to have that grounding, because we're doing a very intellectually stimulating thing, right? It's all upwards, but when you don't have any grounding, you get lost in the source of the conversation. So Ganpati is great for that. And then I prayed to Vagdevi and Shamala, Raj Shamala, who is my favorite deity.
Kuldevi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matangi Devi, and she's the goddess of speech, but she's also the goddess of influence. So when you speak in a manner that can influence the mind of the other person or the people who are listening, and it provokes them to think. Very interesting deity. I love Matangi. She's related to the sun actually. And the next invocation, the last Gayatri mantra was for the sun, which is a new Gayatri mantra I discovered very recently. Usually there's like several Gayatri mantras, but I don't know, I felt really drawn to this particular one. So I've been chanting it constantly at home. But yeah, those were the invocations, and I love doing them every single time whenever I start.
So our approach is quite similar. I start with Gayatri Mantra, then Ganesha, then different planetary forces. Sun is must, Guru is must, and then the third one I generally do is based on the day, just to invoke the energy of the day. And then I just acknowledge Om Namah Shivaya, which basically means that consciousness is fundamental.
Yeah.
So that puts me into the energy of oneness. So yeah, I mean, quite similar, and I'm very flexible even with my whole process of invocation. I keep improvising, because there is this fluidity. I just go with the flow. Sometimes I just do things spontaneously.
Yeah.
Right, because what I've realized is, when you talk about occult, it's not you. And when I say it's not you, basically what I'm saying is it's not your intellect part which is taking place. You go beyond. You go in the deeper part of your mind, and once you tap into that source field or quantum field, whatever you call it, then it's very interesting, because I have had my moments during these kind of conversations. I feel like it's not me. It's just flowing through me.
Yeah.
And when I used to listen people talking about these things, and when I used to be dominated by my intellect, I was like, what is this bullshit? What are these people talking about? Like, they are crazy. But now I can relate, and I cannot explain this to someone until unless that person is having similar kind of experiences. So spot on, we are on, on this, the same resonance level, I would say. Okay, so before we talk about 7 planets, can we talk about the idea of astrology? Because the way I look at it, especially in the mainstream field, people have, their own definition or perception towards astrology, and we tend to take it for granted that we are on the same page when we talk about astrology. Right, that the way I perceive astrology, everyone is perceiving exactly in the same manner, but which is not the case, because these things are, in so much depth that every single person is perceiving very differently. So what is your perception if you have to explain astrology to someone who is, in very beginning stage of this journey of understanding what is these planets, what are the, the different forces playing the role when we talk about astrology? How would you explain that?
I love this particular sort of metaphor or something like that one of my astrology teachers, my Jyotish Shastra teachers use, and she says this very interesting thing where she's just like, imagine yourself or like the other person who you're reading for is in a cage, right? We're in a cage, we're in a jail, whatever it is. The key is in your hand to get out of that particular jail or that cage. You have that vision to do it. That is why Jyotish is related to Jyoti, right? You have that light to do it within your hands. Now it is up to you to get out of that jail. And that exactly, to me, that key is Jyotish. That this, like, whenever people talk about matrix or the world and like all of those things, your key to inner liberation. I have a very different idea of what moksha means, and many people might not agree with it, but like your key to inner liberation, liberating yourself from your mental facilities that have been conditioned, is true liberation to me. So that Jyotish gives you that key. That this is how you work, this is how your systems work, but you can go beyond this. It's not, your chart is never like a static and still, in a still position. It's very dynamic. It changes.
Yeah.
When people are often like coming to me for readings and they read something on the internet, which a lot of like Twitter or anything you say, it's a lot of fear mongering, and it's just like, oh, this placement, they're going to have a bad year. And I'm like, some of it is a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're going to think that you're going to have a bad couple of years due to your Saturn, Mahadasha, Sadi Sati, whatever it is, I don't know why Shani's gotten the worst reputation of them all. But if you constantly feel like that, you're never going to, you have that key in your hand. What are you doing with your time? The 3 years will pass. You haven't done anything but mope and whine and cry about things. That's why.
Yeah. So you are not practicing your kriyamana karmas.
Correct. And so that's why Jyotish is important, and the tool is only as good as the master, right? So good Jyotishis are also equally important, and they're responsible for like talking about these things instead of spreading nonsense on social media, which is what you see 90% of the time.
Yeah. So you think the reputation of astrology currently, the current state of astrology is such that someone who is intellectual or intelligent or smart person tend to dismiss astrology? It's mainly because of the way astrologers are portraying astrology out.
Precisely. I think it's that, and it's also the occult gatekeeps itself, like we talked about it the last time we spoke. There's some knowledge that some people are just not supposed to understand, and it will be gatekept from them until they come to a point where they really need it. A lot of people, this is why they say like a lot of people get into Jyotish or they get into any forms of divination when they've gone through like a massive upheaval in their life, or they've gone through like really grave problems, and that's why they turn towards God. So I have 4th house Ketu, And that's generally considered the Marna Karka Sthana for Ketu. It's not considered the good placement. And that kind of empathy had always existed in my heart for other people. So even when someone's not like, someone's like, oh, I think like astrology is BS, or I don't believe in this, all of that, I have empathy for them. Because they haven't also dealt with a lot of suffering in their life. To an extent that it pushes them to search for something within them instead of looking for external help. Because all of this is Vidya that comes from within. It's not something, you don't look at the sky and you see the sun, and it's very generic what most people say.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So this is, a good subject in itself to explore, which we will do one day. Okay, now let's begin our conversation. Let's talk about these 9 planets, and which one you want to begin with.
I think it's Tuesday. We should begin with Mars, no? My favorite planet.
Okay, let's do Mars.
Mars is the most misunderstood. I have Mars in the first house. Mars is.
Oh, you're manglik.
Yeah. The big evil thing that one can be, especially a woman. Mars is very commonly blamed for a lot of issues and everything. But to me, Mars has been something that gives you clarity, and it gives you a sense of direction and purpose in your life. Mars, in fact, in the first house is a great placement because first house is buddhi. If you're not living your life with that clarity, with strategy, with having some idea of what you're doing, your buddhi is clouded.
So when you say first house is buddhi, you mean the first house is the perspective and the worldview you are carrying?
Yes,
okay.
It's all your indriyas are located in your first house, second house area, right? Your mouth, your eyes, your nose, your ears, all of that is first house, second house. So when that has clarity, when that has direction, that is only then you're able to perceive the world in the right way. Or else some people are completely delusional with the way they see the world because they haven't gone beyond. I wouldn't name particular planets, but there are some people who are very self-absorbed because of it. And so Mars gives that clarity to a lot of people. Mars is also
yeah.
Go on.
so what exactly Mars is like? If I have to understand this planet from a philosophical and psychological point of view both, what exactly Mars is?
Mars, it's in the shloka. Kumaram Shakti Hastam. It says Kumaram means someone who's young. So that vitality, that someone only vitality is like it's a trait of someone young, right? When we look at young children, they're so active. That's the quality of Mars. They're very youthful in nature. Someone who's being youthful has this one meaning of being very active, being very social, all of those things. Another quality of being young is to be able to perceive the constant changing world and adapt to it. Mars is adaptation to the world. Children, when they're born into the world does not like cater around them. They're learning the world. And so to me, Mars is that. And that intelligence comes in when you're able to move out of yourself. So Mars debilitates in Cancer because Cancer is the home, right? It's your comfort zone. It is ease, being in your mom's lap all the time. And then you have Capricorn where it exalts, difficulty, dryness, going into the Sahara Desert and all of those things. So Mars is that vitality, that youthfulness. Shakti Hastam means the one that holds all the power. It's a very empowering planet that has been blamed for a lot of things because Mars knows direction. It knows strategy. Only when you are strategic in your life, you're able to move through things. And you're able to have the clarity to say no to things as well. That's why Mars is viewed as a negative or Krura Graha. Martians tend to come off a little evil, or they tend to come off as like not people pleasing for this reason. In fact, if you look at the sort of mythology of Skanda and Kartikeya, deity is related to Mars. There's several other deities. Durga Ma. There is Kali. She's also her bija mantra is related to Mars. Narsimha related to Mars. So these deities also show that aspect of Mars that is uncontained in some way. Power cannot be contained unless there's someone who's equally powerful.
So in the universal scheme, how do we see Mars?
In the universal scheme, in the sense, how do you see Mars?
So to me, Mars is warrior. To me, Mars is action. To me, Mars is the, I'm not talking about from attribute or personality point of view, but when I say universal scheme, you know, when you say Narsimha, when you say Durga, to me, these are the archetypes, these are the universal forces, and because of them, the universe exists. So whatever universe does through these forces.
These
So
archetypes,
if we
right?
have exactly, yeah. So if we have to have the aerial view, right, that okay, that's what exactly Mars is, and because of that these things are happening in universe. So in the absence of Mars, these things will not happen, and then you won't happen, nothing will happen. I'm coming from that perspective.
I think the very first thing you see Mars within the body itself is your blood flow. If you didn't have your blood flow, menstruation is Mars. Many women get their first period during their Mars dasha, or like a Mars antar dasha or something like that, or during a Mars period, because Mars is supposed to represent like your first blood flow. It's an indicator of fertility. But fertility, or like fertility is what? Beauty, right? Beauty cannot be without violence. Something needs to your egg, or like whatever it is that's within you, needs to die for it to show signs of fertility. That's what Mars is. That is on like a very microcosmic level, but it has women, if they weren't fertile, in many countries, in hot climates especially, women get fertile very quickly. That is Mars. That is the effect of Mars, to mature very quickly, because in order to move through a life that is so difficult, you need to have, and puberty is not just like a physical or a sexual thing, it's also a lot to do with your mental thing, because there's a lot of hormones going crazy in your body at the time. So to me, Mars is that. First thing, it's your menstruation. Second thing, Mars is also the people who cry for others, people who help others. So doctors, many people say, oh, the men who work in the army or whatever. That's fine. That's the protective aspect of Mars. But on a day-to-day basis, who's really helping you? Who's really supporting you? Who's fighting for you? That is also Mars. That is your warrior. In Durga Saptashati, it's just the way of the goddess is shown in the three aspects of Mars, the Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. First chapter begins with Tamas. Mars begins with that tamasic aspect, with Kali, and then it ends with Sattva, which is Saraswati. Some traditions do Saraswati first and then Kali, but it's Kali first in Devi Mahatmyam. So to me, Mars has a lot to do with that as well. Mars can become very deluded easily. It can delude people. It's sexuality, right? So look at the way the internet is working. I wouldn't say it's sexuality itself, but it's the it's the presentation of your youth.
So just before this sexuality remark, you said that beauty requires violence. So I can see the overlap between Venus and Mars here when you are talking about Mars.
Yeah. Aries and
it can
Aphrodite always together in Greek myths as well. They were
Oh,
always
really?
drawn to each other.
So what is the connection of, I know Aphrodite is a Greek goddess representative of Venus, but I didn't know the connection with Aries. So what is the story here?
So Aphrodite is very interesting. I don't know if you watched the Odyssey recently.
No, I haven't. I will. I haven't yet.
You should watch it. Spoiler alert. I mean, it's not really a spoiler. Story has been told for a long time. But the whole Trojan War took place because Aphrodite promised Paris this gift of Helen. She promised him a woman, right? And it was, so Helen was literally married at the time. She was in union with someone already, and she promised the most beautiful woman to this guy. And there was the whole war, the Trojan War, is for Helen of Troy. Troy, as she's not really from Troy, but it's very interesting how Venus is also violent in that sense, right? Aphrodite is not just the goddess. When we look at like Venus in our tradition, which is Lakshmi is not really violent per se. But you come to Devi Mahatmyam chapter 2, 3, 4, that's when you see the violent nature of Lakshmi, because she's known as Chandika Mahalakshmi. In the Greek myth, Aphrodite is the goddess of beauty, love, sexuality, but she's also the goddess of war. She's also known as, I think like the epithet is Aphrodite Urania, so like related to Uranus. And she's constantly drawn to Aries, who's the deity of war, of instability, pestilence, all of those things. They're always having an affair on the side. And the thing about Aries is he's the only Greek deity who has not harmed women, which is very fascinating to understand. The nature of Mars is to protect Shakti.
Yeah.
That's why even in like certain Saparyakram or puja that you do, you invoke Bhairava to protect Devi.
Yeah.
And Bhairava is not playing some kind of external role where he is protecting Devi from us. Devi is us, Bhairava is also within us. But Shakti itself, when we understand her, is raw nature. It's so powerful that it needs a container. That's why Shiva is known as Shaktiman.
Okay.
So Bhairava is the one that is able to contain that. He's able to hold it in. That's why like Bhairava is the Kshetrapala of Kashi. Kashi has so many like Annapurna temples. It has so many devasthans, all of those things. Because of this, because Shakti needs that container. Shakti needs that strategy to move and have direction to flow through. And each of these devtas, so you see Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, all three of them, they kind of work with that Shakti in their own.
So when you say Shakti and Bhairava, you are saying Venus is Shakti here and Mars is Bhairava.
Yeah, Mars is very much Bhairava. Yes, in the Dhyan mantra for Bhairava also it says Tikshna Damshtra, which means one who has sharp teeth.
Okay. Okay, tell me something more about this not the relationship between Venus and Mars, but since we have already made the transition into Venus, right? So let's explore Venus further, because the way people perceive Venus, they think it's all lovey-dovey, it's all beauty, it's all comfort, it's all it's all good. So what is that part which people don't understand about Venus?
If we look at Venus's symbol itself, right? I had a tattoo of it over here for a long time before I covered it up, but I would have shown the symbol. But if we look at the symbol itself, there's a cross, okay? And there's a circle and then there's the cross. So if you look at Sun's symbol, it's just a circle with a dot within, right? It's like a yantra for Sun itself. But the circle itself is supposed to represent the circle of life, it's supposed to represent fertility, it's supposed to represent beauty, all of those things. The cross is supposed to represent corrosiveness. Venus's nature on the outside, anything that is so beautiful, so enticing, it's corrosive on the inside. It chips away. That's why love, you kind of have to dissolve your ego in order to get that fruit of love.
Right.
Many people romanticize love as this like, oh, it's such a wonderful thing, it's so great, and it is. But as soon as you fall into real love, that is when your ego starts shedding. And that is what happens when you do like a Devta Upasana, Devi Upasana specifically. The change is so rapid because Devi is like that. She's so beautiful, she's so enticing. She'll get you to do all of these things for her.
Right.
And then she'll slowly start chipping away on your ego. So people don't understand that about partnerships, romance, all of these things. Beauty in general is corrosive. You lose your senses when you see something so beautiful. You can't like keep your eyes off of it, and it's just such a mesmerizing experience. You get lost for the minute. But that can be a distraction tactic also, which is why Venus is related to war and strategy. To use this piece whenever it is possible. I think there used to be wars where they would deploy. In fact, in Iran, when US had to destroy Iran, the first thing they did was disseminated a lot of pornography amongst men. Because they knew as soon as porn hits Iran, they'll be useless. Their warriors will be completely useless.
Yeah.
So it's just fascinating how beauty can be used as a strategy for war.
And so how do we see the idea of Sukracharya? Because in Indian Navghar Puran, in this mythology, Venus is also the guru. So let's talk about that part. Like, what makes Venus guru? What is that quality? Because if you see from a Western mythology point of view, Venus is more like just, feminine aspect of Venus has been explored. But when you move to Indian mythology and Navghar Puran specifically, here Venus has more masculine side rather than the feminine side, right? So let's explore that area. How do you look at it?
To me, there's always, I always say this, like even in readings, there's always going to be two gurus in the chart. One is your Jupiter and the other is Venus. Venus is the Stree guru, is what I believe. And I have Venus Rahu conjunction. Venus is like my chart ruler and everything. So obviously Venus is number one for me all the time. In fact, my deepest desire in life was to have a female guru, which I did. It Goddess grace, it did happen. But the female guru is quite different from the male guru. If we think about it, Jupiter is sound. It is the words that are being used. It is Vak itself, right? But the Stree guru teaches through silence. She's not teaching you through, okay, you have to do this, or giving you clear direction. She kind of teaches by embodying that principle of Shri or of Devi or of any Devta. So to me, that is Venus. When it comes to Shukracharya was like a very interesting character in all of Navgraha Puran or anything you learn about the Navgrahas, because more than anything, it was actually Shukracharya's wife that was super powerful. She was able to protect a lot of the Asuras because she had so much, the term was Pativrata. She was a Sati, right? So she was, with her sort of ability to, just be completely devoted to her husband, completely in love with her husband, she was able to protect the Asuras, who were her children basically. She's the Guru Mata of the Asuras, right? And so I find that idea itself very fascinating, how that love itself can like really protect you from a lot of like real love, real devotion, real all of these things. When you have that one pointed focus on something in your life, nothing can stop you from achieving a certain kind of goal.
So here I'm going to digress for a while, because this is important to discuss. Most of the people, they don't get it. We generally say that Sukracharya or Venus is the guru of Asuras, right? Now, what do we really mean by Asuras? Like, what exactly again, coming from a very psychological and archetypal point of view, what is Asuras? The reason I'm saying what is not who, because the moment we get into who, then it's difficult to move beyond the story, and then we don't get the practical application of that. So how do you see this archetype of Asura? I mean, if you have to give the example in the real life.
To me, Asura is strength in numbers. It is physical power. It is anything that has an overwhelming amount of tapas. So this is the thing about Asuras that many people don't get, is that they can, and Shukra also. Mrit Sanjeevani Vidya is with who? It's not with Brihaspati, it's with Shukra. It's with Shukracharya. the ability to lose merit and gain merit and lose merit and do it over and over again. To know that Mritsanjeevani Vidya is actually the mantra itself. To be able to do tapas so strong that even the gods are shaken and they come down and give. Because I think of asuras and devtas as haves and have-nots. The asuras were clearly in every area of life, in Surya's story, in every sort of area of life, they were not given certain things. They were not given preferences because of the way they looked, or because they were children of Diti, right? Diti was supposed to be described as this like skinny, scrawny woman who was just ugly, all of those things. And so Rishi Kashyap, when he was with these two women and he had to, copulate with one of them, he was not really happy about it. He was kind of just like, I have to sleep with her, I'm going to close my eyes while doing the deed. With Aditi, he was delighted, so he had all of these good thoughts that produced like the devtas. So to me, asuras are simply the ones who have a lot of power, because love and hate are not really different. They're two sides of the same coin. When we say we hate the real sort of enemy, or like the sort of opposite of love could be ego, not in that way, but like it could be possession, or it could be indifference. Complete indifference is a lot related, it's complete opposite to love. So to me, as asuras is when they have that sort of meter a lot higher. They have that anger, frustration, all of those things at a higher level that can be very motivating in terms of a force, compared to devtas who are considered generally very sattvic in nature, but they're also very rajasic. They're not sattvic at all. You look at the deeds that Indra does, you can know that this man was not very sattvic in nature at all.
So you are saying that we associate asura with tamas and devas mainly with sattva, and rajasic is the attribute which is shared by both.
Yeah, Rajas is the middle of everything. It is everything.
Right.
Because without Rajas, things wouldn't move.
Right.
That is why in my tradition we worship Raja Rajeshwari. Rajas is in the name. She is the one who's Mahaspande, which means she's constantly moving. There's a nature of life. It needs to evolve, it needs to move, it needs to transmute, and it change things. That's what Mars and this is why Devi is Mars and Venus. She's both things. She's actually all planets if we think about it. But Mars and Venus specifically comes up over here. Mars and Venus are both rajasic in nature. People think Mars is tamasic, but it depends.
Obviously, I can associate Mars with movement, and movement is rajasic. And one more thing, most of the people they don't get it. Even I was very ignorant in that part. When we talk about rishis, we generally associate this term rishi with someone who is wise, who scholar, or they have achieved something spiritually. But the literal meaning of rishi is actually a movement.
Yeah.
And if you apply that, to me it is anything which is conscious or anything which is aware that I am what I am, that particular attribute is called rishi. So I can relate with the idea of rajas. Now the reason why I wanted to talk about asuras and devas, and then you brought the idea of rajas, because this is where this holy trinity naturally comes into picture. Right, that we think always, we think from this binary perspective, the duality, that the evil is bad and the angels and gods and devas, they are just good and we are supposed to take a side, rather than thinking from I would say, that's why I was saying, in the universal scheme, what kind of part they are playing. So once you understand that as a system, what happens then you can find your place into it, that okay, what is that asura part in you, which is playing its role, and as long as it is in this control container kind of situation, you can use it. But the moment it goes out of control, then the real problem arises. And then the same thing can be said by the gunas of devas. Like when you have excessive sattva, right, then it's not good. Ultimately, it is all about the equilibrium which you have to maintain between tamas, sattva, and rajas. So, yeah, so that's what I was actually, trying to figure out with this idea of asuras and devas. So, which has been taken care of. Now,
which is why, in Devi Mahatmyam, that's what Devi is doing, right? Her children are like fighting amongst each other, and she's just like, okay, guys, you need to calm down. You need to she's not putting her moral judgments on the asuras either. When she has to punish the devtas, she'll do that, and it has been done. Indra gets punished countless times. Shiva got punished.
Yeah, go ahead. That's what I was asking. Like, can you share a story here, a famous story which people can relate to it with when Devi is punishing devas?
I mean, the number one story is related to Shiva himself. It's not Devi herself punishing Shiva, but like Sati, when she wanted to go to her father's sort of fire sacrifice, it was kind of like a punishment for Shiva, right? He knew that I have to stop her, I have to contain her at the moment. He could not like hold her back. And she went and she jumped in that fire. And he had to live for years without her, and he was crying and he was mourning deep depression, all of those things. Because of that. Shiva had to
But what was the purpose?
Sorry?
What was the purpose behind that? Why Devi was doing that?
Honestly, Devi has no purpose in the way she does things. Her intelligence is like beyond the grand scheme of things. The reason why there was like that separation, because she knows that Sati was not fully prepared for Shiva at that time. You need to do a lot of tapas in order to gain that, to embody that Shiva Tattva, right? And so Sati was not ready. That's why many people say she jumped into the fire sacrifice, but actually what happened was she raised her kundalini and then she left her body. And the body was, and she said that this body feels polluted because I'm born off of the man who disrespects Shiva. Disrespects non-duality itself. Shiva is the paradox, right? Shiva is non-duality. He's non-duality as a concept. And so when you reject that, when Daksh Prajapati rejected that, when he said that I will take only the good parts of humanity, I want you to marry someone like Narayana or someone like Brahma, all of those things, he was rejecting that sort of unorthodox part of life. Because Shiva gives...
Can we say... Yeah, go ahead.
Because Shiva also gives boons to asuras, right? Anytime an asura is like doing tapas for 10,000 years, Shiva is like, here you go, ask for anything you want. And they all love Shiva. Asuras love Shiva. Ravan loves Shiva. They will not go to Brahma, Vishnu, anybody. They'll go to Shiva. Because Shiva is also related to the sun in many aspects. He's that sort of benevolent being that gives equally. There's no partiality over there.
So when you listen to modern scholar or Western researcher on consciousness, when they talk about consciousness, they say this thing, that consciousness is benevolent. And in India, Shiva is called Bholenath, right? That he is too innocent. If you will ask anything from him, and if he is happy, he will give you. And you mentioned this thing that, Devi is not happy with his father, Daksha Prajapati, because he is not respecting non-duality. Now, when I talk about astrology on social media, and I always emphasize on this part, that when you perceive astrology with a duality point of view, it feels like a cage, fear-mongering, you are the victim of your past karma, you have to do so and so to get rid of that. But when you switch the perspective, and when you look at it with non-duality point of view, then it becomes very powerful, empowering tool, as you mentioned in the beginning, that it's the key. If you really want that liberation, and if you feel like you are stuck in this cage, then astrology becomes the key to open the lock and go wherever you want to go out
Yeah.
of that. So whenever we talk about any myth or any story, I always feel like this is my story.
All of them are your story.
Yes.
We think
Yes.
me being born into a household and me living life a certain way, me being poor, that is my story. But your story is larger than that. It is what Brahma says, or it is what Vishnu does, or what Shiva does in his life. Everything can be applied to, because why are they given to us? It's for us to sit down and decode who's Madhu Ketubha in the first chapter of Devi Mahatmyam, who's Shumba Nishumba, why does it take so long to get there? Even when you are Satvik, you have Shumba and Nishumba. And Saraswati, as the force of Sattva, she needs to balance that.
Right.
So, this whole like evil versus good dichotomy does not serve any purpose to us when we try to live through life. Because then you're going to be constantly troubled by the world and never like thriving in any situation. Your whole goal in this life is to become adaptable, to experience that sort of wide range of human emotion.
Let's move to Jupiter.
Oh, yes. The notorious one. Jupiter is quite a trickster planet in my books and what I've read. He's the one who's constantly like taking a different form. I mean, Vishnu is Jupiter, right? Like in a lot of ways. Vishnu is Mercury, but he's also Jupiter, and Jupiter knows the ultimate. Like he does not. Jupiter goes beyond duality, right? We were talking about non-duality, and he does not. The whole concept of Samdam Dand Bhed is that it's Jupiterian in nature. It is to get what you want, regardless of the means, and the means, the end is generally supposed to be dharmic in nature, or possibly, supposed to be benefiting all of humanity. So if we look at Krishna's archetype in Mahabharata, or if we look at Vaman avatar, whatever it is, any of his avatars, they kind of are trickster in nature. They say Mercury is a child. Mercury is a child. Jupiter is the trickster.
Yeah.
That's the guru. There's this term.
So when you say
Sorry?
so when you say, I understand when you say Mercury is a child, basically that's the intellect.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Jupiter, we associate Jupiter with wisdom, and wisdom is like, now if I'll do this, this will happen, so I should not do this, and if I do this will happen. So that's what you really mean by Samdam. That means Guru looks at the full picture.
This thing I love in this saying that it says in Hindi, "Ghee सीधी उंगली से नहीं निकले तो उंगली टेढ़ी कर लेंगे."
Yeah.
That is Jupiter. People think like Jupiter is only like straight means and doing mantra. Jupiter is doing a lot of stuff to get to what you want in life. And so when your intellect is very childlike, it will not understand things सीधे तरीके से. बच्चों को if you tell them like, oh, don't touch the fire, you're going to burn and you're going to get hurt, all of those things, they don't understand that. When you let them do those things, when you allow your child to just go touch the diya or like put their finger in the socket, they get hurt. They learn very quickly that this is not to be messed with.
So when you say Jupiter is trickster and Samdam Dand Bhed, now take my example. So I am Virgo ascendant and I have Jupiter in my first house. So how would you interpret that?
That's actually a very straightforward placement compared to other. Jupiter also exalts in emotion, right? Jupiter is very emotionally driven in that sense. But when it comes to Virgo is a very analytical Rashi, and I also think like Mars and Jupiter both do really well in Virgo for this reason. Because it's pattern recognition that comes into Jupiter. Jupiter is what prana, it's a outer planet.
Expansion.
It's expansion, all of those things. And it gets into Virgo, it sees how like you were talking about in the beginning, how patterns repeat themselves, how evolution takes place. All of that happens with Jupiter in Virgo. This is a very clever placement.
So, and one point you have mentioned here, that Mars and Jupiter, they both do really well in Virgo, but traditional astrologers, they find it a challenging position for Jupiter and Mars both when they are in Virgo.
Interesting, because so I think like astrology is also a very evolving field. We can't read something that was true 10,000 years ago and apply it to our lives right now. Life has changed completely. So if you think back in the day, they were saying things like, okay, Dhanisha Nakshatra is ugly, it has bad teeth, this and that. Now, most modern sex symbols are Dhanisha. They're not really ugly. When you look at a lot of these like old ways of saying certain things, it cannot be applied the same way to how we see life now. Jupiter in Virgo is a placement for someone who is very strategic. It's someone who's very analytical in nature. Back in the day, maybe you didn't need that much brain power to live. If you were like hunting and gathering, maybe not so much. But right now, if you're learning generative AI systems, or if you're learning any kind of computer systems, you need that. If you're learning any kind of patterns, if you're trying to become a coach of some sort, you need to have that. So whatever,
Right.
Mars, Kruda Graha, not useful back in the day. Rahu was very disruptive in nature. Anyone who is like antisocial was considered Rahu back in the day. But now, antisocial people, they change lives. Revolutionaries are often associated with Rahu.
So you would say from this perspective, then this the friendship enemy, this planetary table, it changes.
Hell
Because because traditionally speaking, Jupiter and Mars, they both consider Mercury as their enemy.
Yeah. Of course it changes. Like, there are such, I think like the astrological view of certain planets only being, to me, Venus remediates Sun. When we look at a particular mantra for Matangi, she's related to the Sun, but she actually remediates Sun through Venus. And Venus and Sun are enemies, so how is that happening?
How can you give one practical example of that when you say that Sun is the remedy of Venus?
Venus remediates Sun. So a bad sun in the chart.
Oh, Venus
when we think
remediates,
about
okay.
bad suns in the chart, it is many people like, oh, they're a people pleaser, they don't have boundaries, or it can be someone who's extremely like controlling, someone who wants their way constantly, someone who's very rigid in the way that they think. That those could be qualities of a negative sun as well. And
So it's like love dissolves
yes,
ego.
that's precisely it.
Right.
That's the remedy for Matangi Devi's Bija mantra is clean. Aim is given to the Mercury Bija mantra is given to Tripura Sundari. She is Aim, so she's sun that remediates Mercury. As sun she remediates Mercury, and then Matangi Devi is Venus remediating the sun. Actually, if you look at the Mahavidya structure, there's like 3 deities that just remediate the sun because it's the most important planet. It's like the axis of everything in our lives, so that needs the most remediation.
Okay. So going back to Jupiter, now, if someone is lacking the wisdom in their life, like Jupiter exalts in Cancer and debilitates in Capricorn. Let's look at it from that point of view. Why Jupiter exalts in Cancer and it debilitates in Capricorn?
So when we think of Jupiter, I think of Jupiter as audacity more than anything else. To have the audacity to do things in life is Jupiter. मुझे ये नहीं आ रहा पर फिर भी मैं कर लूँगा. It's okay. I can just get in and.
It's like self-belief.
Yeah, people are. That's why they say like being delusional can get you into a lot of places in life about your abilities. So that is Jupiter. That's that extremely unshakable self-belief. In Cancer, I'd say it is exalted because Cancer is the home. It's how people build that belief within you. If you have a good home, if you have a good family, if people know you intimately, they know what is your capacity. But when you go to Capricorn, people don't know you. You are essentially a stranger with a lot of Jupiter in Capricorn can be extremely successful. You make a lot with little resources. Jupiter in Cancer is very comfortable. You're not. This is why I don't like the traditional meaning of what an exalted placement can do, because plenty of exalted placements or people with exalted placements are not really thriving in life per se. If you look at the charts
Yeah, I know
of
that.
many
Yeah,
millionaires or billionaires,
yes.
whoever it is, Scorpio moon comes up, debilitated moon. No support from the mother,
They do
no
really well.
nourishment,
Yeah,
nothing. They
yeah,
move through life with such a lightning speed.
yes.
So it's just that to me, Jupiter as a trickster, he does really well in the public sphere. When you don't know people, right, you're able to play them. You're able to do things really well. You're able to move through life. But when people know you intimately, you're not able to play them as well. The Cancer is also the norm,
So what?
right? It's the norm your house follows.
Hmm.
To have certain rules that you need to follow. So you can't ever get out of that. You can't ever be, unless you have Jupiter Rahu in Cancer, and then that's a whole thing. You have to follow the norm, household rules. In Capricorn, it's no man's land. Do whatever it is that you need. So that's how I think of Jupiter debilitation and exaltation in that sense.
So we can say if Jupiter is in Cancer and if that person is having complete self-belief, I would say that person will naturally have self-belief just being Jupiter in
Yeah.
Cancer, right? But if there are other planetary placement in a way which are not supporting, like for example, if Mercury is in a difficult position where someone is having the self-belief but the person is not being practical
Yeah.
about it. One thing what I have observed through my consultation, that the remedy of any planet, like for example, if Jupiter is in Capricorn and people say it is debilitated, the remedy of that is any planet which gets exalted in the same sign, which is Mars.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the way I look at it, if Jupiter is in your Capricorn, the problem here is you are not able to move because you are lacking that belief in yourself. And if you use the help of Mars, at least when you will start
You'll be
moving,
self-motivated.
things will start into place. Things will start falling into place for you, whatever you want to achieve. What would be your message to someone who is having Jupiter in Capricorn? Because most of the time what people generally see, because people give lots of weightage and value to Jupiter,
Yeah.
right? And if Jupiter gets exalted or debilitated, people start taking it extremely in a positive or negative
Really,
direction.
these days I think
So-
it's mostly Venus that people are really afraid of getting debilitated Venus. From what I've seen, like on social media and stuff, there's a lot of nonsense being spread about debilitated Venus. But it's very interesting how. So when we think of the Sanskrit term of exaltation, debilitation, and we look at our charts, Ucha means up, right? Ucha is the word used for exaltation. Nicha is
yeah,
related to debilitation. Actually, the
Yeah.
planets that are debilitated, the fruits of those things come very easily to you. So
How?
I'll tell you, I have Saturn debilitation in my chart, okay? I can finish work that is required. So if something requires 6 hours of work, I can finish it in 2 hours. And then 4 hours I'm moping and crying and whining about why should I. This is why I couldn't do a corporate job for the life of me. Because you just half corporate jobs are just sitting at a desk doing nothing for long periods of time,
Right.
and you have to pretend to be working.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is just
Yeah.
wasting my time. So I had that speed. Saturn is an old planet, right? So when we look at Jupiter, Jupiter is the guru. He's not exactly youthful, but he's not exactly old either. But he's a Brahmin, so he's a slow-moving planet. Brahmins tend to be a little lazy. So when he's at home, he can just relax. Jupiter in Capricorn is when the Brahmin has to go to a workplace at a factory
Capricorn is work,
and work
right?
over there.
Yeah.
Whole different set of skills required.
So if Jupiter is in Capricorn, if that person does workout or running
Yeah.
or
Mars,
join a
again,
gym,
like you said, Mars
right?
needs to be good.
Mars, yeah, right, yeah, makes sense, yeah. So see, ultimately, it is not about what kind of position you are having in your chart. It is more about how you make use of it.
Correct. And so a lot of what astrology is to be able to learn how to use that tool. You have a key, you can open the door, fine. What else can
Right,
you do with that
right.
key? Can you carve?
Right.
That's why people in prisons, they get really creative with all materials they have. They are very limited.
Oh yeah, good example.
That is
Yes.
Jupiter in Capricorn. You go to a prison, you see the kind of things people are inventing over there. Then from hooch to the most refined things, you'll find all of it. I'm not saying
Right.
Capricorn's a prison, by the way, before like Capricorns get.
No,
I'm
it's
just
a
saying, like
it's
with
a good
very less, also you can do a lot. It just forces you to use your buddhi.
Yeah, I think that perspective is really missing there because people lack that expansive perspective towards thing and at the same time fluidity to go beyond the classical and traditional idea of it. And the reason why that is happening, it's not just in astrology, but it goes beyond that. I'll give you one of the example. I have been doing active research in the field of reincarnation. So I keep studying, I keep collecting different materials. And there is this famous book of Secret Doctrine by Helena Blavatsky, who started this Theosophical Society. And in that book, it says that when someone is reincarnating in another life, that generally takes between 700 to 2000 years. Right? So that is the one theory according to this book. And also said that he took 700 years to take his next birth. So I was like, okay, maybe Secret Doctrine is saying the right thing. But when I did this study on this author name is Ian Stevenson, and he was Virginia University psychiatric professor, and he did study in with 3,000 kids, and those kids around the world, they claimed that they remember their past lives. So he literally went there, and whatever they were claiming, he went to those places just to verify everything, and he verified everything, and they all were saying the right thing, right? And then I was reading other book, and that book says that the reincarnation time differs century to century. So for example, if you might die in 17th century, you might take around 300 to 400 years to take next birth. But if you die in 21st century, you will take around 100 years to take next birth.
It speeds up
So
the...
It speeds up, exactly. It speeds up. Why? Because Earth is constantly changing its position. So Earth is not exactly in the same position where maybe 10,000 years ago someone was literally taking 2,000 years. Right? So you are still using those examples, and there are many different examples. Like in Bible, they say that the new cycle will come after 1,290 days. But there are other frameworks of these grand cycles. They talk about 1,290 years. So now the interpretation is maybe Bible is not talking about days in today's perspective. They were always talking about years.
Like the time sort of from different perspectives. If we look at like one blink of an eye of Brahma is an entire day, and so on and so forth.
Exactly. So that's why I find you fascinating. Why? Because you don't confine yourself with classical and with traditional ways of looking at it. You keep your eyes open. You are actively seeing the changes, and then you follow your intuition, your experience, and I think this is what is really required. Okay, now let's move to next planet. Which one we are going to pick?
I think we're
after
just
Jupiter?
not doing this in a very linear way because there's so many. The
That's fine.
planets cannot be isolated. They are in relationship with the entire solar system. So it's quite beautiful. That's why I love astrology. It's a very nothing is ever isolated. I love divination for this reason. If there's Venus, there's Mars, there's always like the two. There's always a pair.
100%. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. No, I already acknowledged that in my mind, what you just mentioned. And I was like, that's not possible to do it. There will be always overlapping, because it's not just, in isolation we are talking about it. And the moment you do that, this is where most of the people, they don't get right astrology, because in books what you do is, okay, there is a whole chapter on Jupiter. Now you are just reading the whole story of Jupiter in an isolation, right? That's why I always say, if you really want to understand astrology, always begin with Navgar Purans, because there is a whole story where every planet is merging with each other, right? And we are exactly doing the same thing. Naturally, there is this transition and overlapping is taking place. So I think, since you already started talking about Jupiter in Capricorn, I think the next planet is naturally going to be Saturn.
Yeah. Saturn is, I'm born in Aquarius, so like Saturn's favorite child. I keep saying it all the time. Saturn is just such a wonderful planet. He's also the planet that's related to rest. Actually, Saturn's really lazy. Saturn loves being lazy. Anybody who loves resting, enjoying, relaxing, great Saturn. Anybody who's restless when they don't have like the slightest amount of work and they're on a weekend and they're like sort of looking for things to do, that is Saturn sort of gone bad in a lot of ways. Which is why I said, like, debilitated Saturn is unable to rest. It's in Aries, it debilitates in Aries, right? It's a go sort of thing. So that's what I love about Saturn. Saturn, another thing I love about it, so this relates to Rahu also. Rahu is the revolutionary, right? Saturn is the people without power. And Rahu is known as the higher octave of Saturn. Ketu is known as the higher octave of Mars. And I find that so fascinating as an idea, because both of these planets are related to Vayu. Saturn and Rahu are both related to Vayu, and only Vayu in our body, when it's balanced or when it's in a certain direction, is when it moves upwards and your Kundalini also raises. So a lot of the practices that you do, a lot of penance that you do around your like religion or your spiritual practice, rituals, whatever it is, they're very Saturnian in nature. Anushthan, for one example is Anushthan. When I did my first Anushthan, it's to be able to sit down in one place and chant like a certain number of mantras. It's very hard. We think like, oh, this is going to be easy, it's going to take 2 hours and it'll be done. But no, you're supposed to do it for 5-6 hours in one place, and that is that strength that Saturn gives. Rahu, when
Saturn is stability.
it is that stability. It's to be able to just sit in one place and to endure is also Saturn, right? Anybody who's gone through like a tough time, they have to just endure it. And this is when Venus also comes into play. Saturn's best friend is Venus. I love their friendship in that sense, because Venus makes that endurance very enjoyable. When you go to the gym, you're working out and you're working out really hard. You don't feel it at the time. You're just like, oh, this is so terrible. Why do I have to come here and do this over and over again? But then you start seeing results and you feel like going more. You have that dopamine hit. That is.
But isn't it Mars? Like, don't you associate endurance with Mars over Saturn?
I think Saturn is endurance. Mars is like the motivation to keep going regardless. To be able to just
makes sense. Yes.
Have like a tough time. Some people endure and they get really depressed by it. That's why Saturn's very depressing in that sense, right? Mars is when like you get out of that depression. You're like, you know what, no matter how tough life is, I'm just going to keep going and see where this goes. That is Mars.
Yes, agree.
There's something moving in my house. I don't know what.
Because you're talking about Mars.
There's just some sound coming over here. It's just so strange. But that's how I really look at Saturn. I think it's a very beautiful planet. And have you gone through your Sade Sati yet? Have you been through?
I'm going through currently. Yeah, it's been roughly 4 years.
Oh, you have moon in Aries.
I have moon in Pisces, so not 4 years, I would say 5 years, almost 5 years, yeah, close to 5 years. So I have moon in Pisces.
How has your Sade Sati experience been as like, because obviously Saturn in Pisces in Lal Kitab is a kingmaker placement. So generally it is supposed to be a little nicer because Pisces is also like, it's about like dispassion, right? It's about moving beyond the physical world and sort of going into an esoteric realm. So I think Saturn in Pisces is really good, and that's why like a lot of people started waking up to the truth of our systems and what people were doing, influencers were doing, or whatever the government was doing when Saturn entered Pisces. Like the whole Epstein files sort of thing that happened.
Yes.
Anything
Yeah,
that was
yeah, yeah.
revolutionary that happened during this time was when Saturn entered Pisces. So yeah, what is your
Yeah,
perspective
so
around this?
so my personal experience with Sade Sati, because I have Saturn in Capricorn in fifth house. So I became dad during Sade Sati, and the way I look at it, I always call my daughter from astrological archetype point of view that she is my Saturn.
It's the fruit of
Because
your Saturn.
she's teaching me, yeah, so she's teaching me endurance, she's teaching me patience, she's teaching me stability, practicality, all the Saturn qualities she's teaching me, right? As far as now, Saturn is in Pisces and my moon is already in Pisces. I mean, in natal chart, moon is in Pisces. I have been having, I mean, powerful intuition. I can feel it. I don't talk much esoteric stuff, which is very impractical on social media because I'm Virgo, so I naturally operate like that. But I see things sometimes in my dream, and then after a while, I see it is transforming into real events, right? And then I was like, how that is happening? So I think possibly it's because of the Saturn being in Pisces, and at the same time, from my profession point of view, I have been experiencing exactly the same kind of theme where I have to release the older identities, I have to accept new things because Saturn is completing its cycle. So it is a complete transformation, and whenever the transformation is taking place, you have to allow the older identity to fade away, right? Anyways, it is going to be, right? You cannot stop it. The only thing you can do is you can create drama around it, you can resist for a while. And I think this is what most of the people, they don't understand about Sade Sati, that Sade Sati is the time which makes you diamond.
Yeah.
And people have this, again, binary perspective towards these things, that either something is good or bad. What people don't understand, any time which is materialistically bad, you will see it's always spiritually good, right? And most of the time you see exactly the opposite of that. Like materialistically you are enjoying the life, but spiritually you are falling into into hell because illusion and all those sort of stuff. So yeah, that's how I look at it, that I think I am having the best time of my life spiritually.
Yeah, Sadi Sati was also for me, like my Sadi Sati is towards the end since it's in Pisces now. So for me also it was a deeply, I think like I had my spiritual awakening. I started doing Jyotish, taking it very seriously and doing it as a career thing that I didn't know even existed at that point of time. I think I started I was doing readings way before that in 2018-19, but I was doing them for free. I didn't take it seriously as a career. I was just like, oh, this is so much fun to do. You get to know people. I wanted to become a therapist. And then God's like, there's another way to become a therapist. And so it was during my Sade Sati as well that I had this sort of, I had to go away from my home. I had to live in like a separate condition, did like a couple of jobs that were not really satisfying, but ultimately Saturn just leads you towards your like larger swadharma in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And I think it's such a wonderful planet for that. Like unlike when we're going through trouble, when we're going through that kind of pain, we don't have that sort of bird's eye view that things will get better, that things will change, and this is good for me right now. It's only when like that time has passed, and that is when you realize that that was actually a good time. I had so much fun. I learned so much during that period of my life.
Yes. Yes.
Saturn's
Yes.
time also makes sense, right? They say time heals wounds and all of those things. It's for a reason. Some things you only get to know about yourself, learn about yourself through that time. And this is where like I feel like Moon and Saturn Rashis, if you have like first Saturn Dasha also, you kind of like mature very quickly. You learn things very quickly.
Hmm.
It's because you have that advantage of time by your side, Saturn by your side.
Even I have seen people, they have Capricorn in their first, Saturn in their first house, or Capricorn ascendant. They mature, fast in comparison to others, and they tend to have the responsibility. They naturally become elder in their circle, even if they are, younger in the age. But in terms of responsibility and the role they are playing in their group, is different.
To me, Saturn.
Uh,
Yeah, sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, no, I was done.
To me,
Yeah.
Saturn is also lightness, right? So you come into this world with such a heavy karmic load, and then throughout your life, you're just kind of becoming lighter, lighter, lighter as you go. Because Saturn, if you really look at the planetary system, Saturn is the lightest planet. It can float on water. And
Okay, I
yeah,
didn't
it
know
can
that.
actually float on water. Water is emotion. That's why like Saturnians have that reputation of being detached and unemotional. All of those things are beyond like that emotional sort of realm. And so this is the thing with Saturn. It's sort of like you start off with a lot of Saturnians I've seen. They start off life with a lot of heaviness within them. They have this load. They feel like a donkey carrying a bunch of stuff. But as you go through life, you sort of unload all of that and you become very childlike. So a lot of Saturnians, they say that Saturnians often tend to do things, they're late bloomers, or they tend to like experience things a little later in life. That's when they're starting their life truly. Mid-20s, early 30s, all of those things. That's when life truly begins for a lot of Saturnians, because there's a little bit of control as well. When you're a Saturnian child, there's no sense of control you have over your surroundings, over why you were born a certain way. So that control also comes with time, to know yourself and to be able to direct yourself in certain ways. That is the beauty of Saturn, and that's also the beauty of Mars. Because you see that sense of direction come in a little later, but it'll come in and it'll give you that clarity. It'll give you that you've done all the work that is required.
So when you label someone as with the planetary archetype, like when you say someone is Saturnian, is it based on their ascendant of Capricorn or Aquarius, or moon in Saturn in this moon in the Capricorn or Aquarius, or Saturn in first house? How do you frame that? Like, what is your process to label someone with these
I
archetypes?
think their story, when you hear someone's story and you look at their chart, the story and the chart, they make sense, right? And so that's how I label people as certain things. And those labels are not definitive. Like if you're Saturnian in one dasha of your life, it's not necessary you're going to behave in a Saturnian way for the rest of your life. Of course, there's something
Right.
that is overwhelmingly present in your being that is always going to be there. Like I have been like this since I was a very young girl. So Venus, I have that Venusian nature very naturally. I have Venus Rahu. I have so many, like I have first house is ruled by Libra. I have like my sun is in Taurus. All of those things. So that Venusian nature is natural. But did it change during certain dasha? Now I'm in Jupiter Mahadasha. People wouldn't consider me to be extremely Venusian as I was in my Rahu Mahadasha. Or in उसके पहले तो कोई दशा थी नहीं, but this is how
Right, yeah.
this is how I see it, as that even if you do give someone that label is, you can take it off as easily. So it's not
So you're saying basically just like Mahadasha, people are having that dominating phase of certain quality, and then you can easily associate with some planet.
Absolutely. Archetypes are meant to be worn like costumes, right? You can't just embody that one archetype and stick with it for the rest of your life. It's going to make you miserable.
Right.
It's also going to stop you from like living a very creative life. Because you're stuck in this,
Right.
if you're stuck in this archetype of I'm Saturnian, I'm just supposed to go through drudgery, I'm just supposed to live a very difficult life. Even if life gives you good things, you will be unable to perceive it. You will not see anything as a gift.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, because collectively you are all the planets, all the zodiac
Absolutely.
signs, all the
Ganesha Graha
nakshatras. Yeah,
Nakshatra
you are
Yogini
made of
Rashi
that.
Rupini.
Yeah.
There's this thing we say,
Right.
it's called Sarva Siddhi Kari Stotram in Sri Vidya. And it's literally the first two lines. Ganesha Graha Nakshatra Yogini Rashi Rupini. Devi Mantramayi Naumi Matrika Pita Rupini. We're made up of letters, right? We're all made up of sound.
Yes.
So Devi is all of
Matrikas,
those things.
yeah.
And we're Devi. So Devi is Ganesha, Graha, Nakshatra, Yogini is Rashi, everything.
I like the way you put things always, collectively, and at the same time there is this fluidity.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, we can spend whole podcast on each planet, but we want to cover everything little bit, right? So let's do next one is Rahu, because they both share Aquarius. But before we move to Rahu, I always see, I mean, from a system point of view, I can understand that Saturn is associated with Aquarius. But apart from that, I always see that, Rahu is more,
Aquarius.
in my understanding, more Aquarius than Saturn. So how do you see that distinction
I
here?
100% agree with you. So have you ever delved in tropical astrology?
Yeah, a little bit in the beginning. That's how I begin to understand
Tropical
astrology.
astrology has Uranus and Neptune.
Uranus, yes.
Rahu and
yeah.
Ketu are just that for us. We can
Yeah.
use Uranus and Neptune, but they're so far away. There's a reason why they're not used in sidereal astrology, is because they're so far away that their effect. But Rahu and Ketu give you an immediate effect on these.
Yeah, because the lunar
They're
lunar
the
nodes,
lunar
yeah.
nodes. They're the closest to your. They're closest to your purpose in life. Moon is how you give birth to things. It's how you grow in life. So the lunar nodes come into play over here. And to me, Rahu is just like Uranus. In modern astrology, by the way, they have Uranus as the co-ruler of Aquarius and Neptune as the co-ruler of Pisces. That's why
Pisces.
Ketu does so well in Pisces. Some people say Rahu and Ketu do really well in Virgo Pisces axis for this season. But that's how I truly see it with Rahu being associated with Aquarius, is because Rahu is a visionary. He goes beyond the normal. He has
Right.
like that 10th house is okay, great. You are with the people. You're in the systems. 11th house is going beyond the system. So in the beginning when we were
Yes.
talking about the rich, the elites, all of that conspiracy theory realm, that comes in the 11th house. It's when you go beyond, like looking at things at just a eye to eye perspective. You can see when you take a step back and you have the privilege to do so also, to go beyond whatever is being shown right now to you. That's why
Yeah.
11th house is the house of gains. It's the house of celebrity. It's the house of fame. Celebrities have a completely different life that is detached from the way we live.
Right.
They have different technology. They have access to things we can't even imagine. They have access to certain technologies that we can't even think of. And that's why they're able to influence the world.
Aquarius, right.
Rahu's like that. But
Rahu is influence.
Rahu's not influencing though. Saturn can influence. That's why they say that Saturn rules over the 11th house also. Or Aquarius. Because Saturn can influence. Rahu can't influence. Rahu's bit of a scapegoat.
How so? But to me, I see Rahu is the influence because, it's like I am obsessed. I'm talking about exactly the same thing constantly. And as a result, I'm influencing someone. But you are saying Saturn is more influence. Like, What is your
I
rationale
think it
behind
also,
it? How do
so
you see
to
that?
me, Saturn is long term influence. It is
Hmm.
like, it is something for, if you really look at great personalities, that is Saturn. If you look at Mahatma Gandhi, if you look at people who have brought about actual change, that is Saturn. Rahu is short term influence.
Got it.
Rahu
Makes
is
sense.
like
Yeah. This
bits
is
of
where,
fame.
yeah. So this is where this endurance quality of Saturn comes into picture when you are doing something for longer term. Rahu is like more
Yeah,
explosive.
it's
Like
suddenly
it's like
overnight
it's
fame.
like exactly. I would say Rahu is Instagram and Saturn is YouTube.
100%. Yeah. It was like
Yeah.
Instagram is a very Rahu based realm. It's very visual, right? Everything is concentrated here.
Yes. I agree. Yeah. Now it makes sense to me. Okay. Now what else Rahu is? Let's talk more because Rahu is, uh, after Saturn, if the next planet, my most favorite is
Rahu,
Rahu because of, yeah, I love Rahu. So, yeah, talk
to
more.
me, Rahu is also, I love Rahu personally because it's associated to my Lagna, and I feel like Rahu is also focus to get to the
Hmm.
gold without like the fluff around it. So, with the Samudra Manthan episode, when we look at Rahu being the only sort of asura to see past
Hmm.
Vishnu, he's not even focused on Mohini. He's not really
Hmm.
even looking at this beautiful. And when you read that episode in Shiv Purana or any Puranas, you see
Hmm.
that that woman was so beautiful, seductive, all of those things that people were just drawn to. The asuras, the devtas, everyone was melting. But Rahu was like, no, I need to get to the gold. I want that Amrita.
Hmm.
So Rahu
Yeah.
can be very hyper
Yes.
focused in that sense. That's why like I feel like
Yeah.
Rahu is very devotional in nature. Because
Yes.
once it catches on to something, it's going to make its life purpose to achieve that particular thing.
Now I have a
Yeah.
question. Yeah, now I have a question. I want to stop here because otherwise the moment will be lost. Now, I always say this thing to people that Rahu is not the problem. The problem is you don't have the direction. Once you give the direction to Rahu, Rahu is a rocket. It will take you wherever you want to be quickly, right? And the way I look at it, the direction comes from Jupiter because having that self belief in you, the having the wisdom, having this, the samdam that is like, okay, by hook or crook, I just want that because now I'm very clear, right? But traditional astrology says when Jupiter and Rahu they are together, that is Guru Chandal
Yes.
Yog. Let's talk about
I
that.
love Guru Chandal Yoga. I also think Venus and Rahu
Hmm.
together is Guru Chandal Yoga as well. Like if we look at, yeah,
Guru,
because
okay.
Venus
Hmm.
is also Guru, right? And Guru Chandal Yoga, when you as a Guru are a very clever Guru, and your Shishya will also
Hmm.
be equally clever. Guru at Chandal is someone who's at the outskirts, right? Someone who's an outcast,
Hmm.
someone who is very different. So that makes like a
Hmm.
person who's very brilliant. In Hindi, there's a saying "ulti khopdi," which I love, and it's
Hmm.
constantly used for me and my
Hmm.
brother. I have Venus Rahu, he has Jupiter Rahu, Guru Chandal Yoga, in different contexts. But they're very
Hmm.
creative people. They're very creatively motivated, and they will do things required of them at the moment. They're not someone who is like, I'm just going to surrender to whatever life gives, puts me through, and I'm just going to live like this forever.
And when does exactly Rahu Chandal takes place? Apart from the conjunction, like when Jupiter and Rahu they are in one house, then there is Guru Chandal Yog. Other could be the trine. Is there any other way for the Guru Chandal to take place in your
Venus
chart?
Rahu. Venus Rahu is,
No, I mean
I
no.
feel like,
Even Venus Rahu is there, except trine and conjunction.
I think like someone having Venus in Aquarius or Jupiter in Aquarius, or Jupiter in Aquarius is considered as good as an exalted Jupiter, by the way. If you've ever heard of that saying,
Why?
it's because Aquarius, again, like I don't know if you know the tarot symbol for Aquarius. It's
I
the
don't know.
star, and
Okay.
and Aquarius is holding that water jug. When we look at Cancer, Cancer itself is the water.
Yeah, that's
But
the
who has the
kumbha.
power?
They also use the pot
Who has the power? Aquarius has
to
to
hold.
hold the water, to give that kind of
Hmm.
nourishment to the world. Aquarius. So when we look at it in that way, Jupiter in Aquarius is fine. It's comfortable on its own. Jupiter in Cancer is fine. It's comfortable on its own. Jupiter goes into Aquarius. It does things for other people.
And interestingly, even Venus in Aquarius is very powerful because it is just one step away from its exaltation. So there is a term, I don't remember exact term for which we use, like if any planet is going to be exalted in a sign, but just before that one sign is also very powerful because it is closer to the exaltation.
Yeah, because it can see both perspectives, right? It can see where
Yeah.
it is right now and it can see beyond it as well. It's on the cusp of exaltation, I guess. That's the
Right.
word for it.
Right. Yeah.
So I find that planets in Aquarius do really well. Certain planets in Aquarius do really well for that reason. It's because Rahu is not inimical to anybody. If we really think about it, Rahu is not the enemy of anybody. He's just trying to,
Rahu is
yeah, he's
self-obsessed.
self-obsessed. He's just trying to get his
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
He's not
Right.
worried about isko kya chahiye, why should I look at Mohini, this and that. It's not the concern. That's why it's so hyper-focused. Rahu is often related to administration of drugs, and it's related
Yes.
to all of those negative substances that people talk about. But I don't view those substances as the wrong thing in general. For example,
Yeah, because they are just the projection. They just project what you are having inside you. Like if you start saying monster, they are just the symbolism of your own fear.
that's why a lot of
Yeah.
there's a group of people who did ayahuasca. They went and did an ayahuasca ceremony, and before the ceremony, it was like a study that was done. I don't remember exactly where it is. I read it in a book probably, but they did an ayahuasca based study where a day before that they were going to go into this, they have to prepare themselves, right, mentally, and so one day before the ayahuasca trip, they kind of decided to give them positive affirmation. They told they gave this like space to explore all of these like different positive emotions, and their ayahuasca trip was great compared to the control group who were not really given much of they were not told to do anything. They were just like, okay, just go do this particular drug, this particular substance. And these people, some of them had good experiences, some of them had really terrible experiences, but everyone in that other group that did the positive affirmations, that did all of these things, they all had good experiences with that particular drug. So again, like you said, Rahu needs that direction. It needs a guru to, take him far in life.
No, I absolutely resonate with that because I myself, I do this practice. Like, for example, when I'm having a tea sitting with my wife, we have made this rule that we don't want to gossip, we don't want to talk anything which we don't want to talk, right? Why? Because the moment the tea or caffeine or any kind of, because see, tea in itself, it's a drug. It's just with lower intensity. This is what we don't get most of the time. I use sometimes nicotine gums, right? Why? Because the moment I put the nicotine gums there, and if I'm doing some research and if I'm thinking about something, my brain starts working in that direction. Like, it gives me the tunnel vision. Why? Because I start giving the direction to that intensity. Because for me, caffeine is Rahu, nicotine is Rahu, and the only thing missing with that Rahu, as I already mentioned, is the direction. So once you do that using your intention, then it becomes the container. And the way I again look at the idea of guru, to me, guru is a very fascinating communication strategy. Now, why do I say that? When I speak with my friends, I don't generally share lot of wisdom stuff with them because I know it is going to be useless. Right? Why? Because I'm their friend. They don't want these things from me because they don't perceive me as guru or teacher or a mentor. Right? So when it comes to communication, relationship has a very important role in that. So the way I look at it, when I am doing anything. Like, for example, when we started having this conversation and when you are doing invocation, to me, it is like establishing that intention. And once you establish that intention, that becomes your
Yeah.
guru. And now when you are maintaining the discipline of your mind, that what exactly you are supposed to talk during this duration, that becomes the Saturn, right? And naturally then that the Saturn as a disciple, as a discipline, is serving the master, serving the intention,
Indeed.
right? So this whole the trinity, I would say, in this particular context, Rahu, Jupiter and Saturn, they really complement each other,
Yeah.
right? And see how beautiful this framework is. Like, it gives you the language, it gives you the framework to put things into context and understand it. And even from an affirmation point of view, when you are doing any affirmation in the beginning, then you are establishing that direction. And I think at the level of essence, I would say this is astrological knowledge, right? Because apart from astrology, you don't get this idea of controlling these forces. You can name anything. Like, the way I look at it, psychology comes out of astrology. And you see, the whole idea of archetype is not possible without zodiac sign.
Absolutely.
And if I'm not wrong, even Carl Jung credited astrology zodiac sign for
He
his
was
archetype, and based on that,
canonically tantric. I'm telling you, he was really
yes,
into Kundalini, chakras, every like Indian tradition he had studied completely, and he was really fascinated by the Shri Yantra also, because in the Shri Yantra itself you encounter so many different yoginis and different archetypes of the way we live our lives.
hmm,
It's very fascinating.
yes, yeah. Okay, now let's move to Ketu.
The opposite.
Yeah, Rahu, the seven axis.
So Ketu, and when we look at it as this really interesting sort of association of Ketu that I read very recently in Uttara Kalam, that it's known as the treasure of our chart.
Hmm.
So wherever Ketu is sitting, you have that wealth related to that particular house. And it's very fascinating because Ketu is generally like the repulsive part of our life that we don't want to really go into. We don't want to seek it out. We don't actively, are drawn towards it. Rahu is something we're drawn towards. We want to like move into it, go
Hmm.
crazy about it. Ketu is quite the opposite. And I was thinking about the concept of Ganpati. Ganpati is the devta that is related to Ketu in that sense. He's related to
Right.
the Mooladhara chakra. He's the Mooladhara chakra. He's the guardian of Kundalini. Ketu guards
Hmm.
Rahu. Rahu is also spiritual ascension, right? It is to be able to move beyond the material. But
Yeah.
in order to awaken that Rahu, Ketu, there's a lot of hard work that we need to do in the physical world. There's a lot of like goals that we need to, vasanas that we have to overcome. And some vasanas or like some desires, you have to enjoy them before you get rid of them. This is the concept of vasanas is very interesting to me in relation to Rahu and Ketu, because we all have all of these different vasanas, right? We have this desire to have a family, to have a wife, to have lots of money, maybe a car, all of those things. Some vasanas you can't just override them. You have to achieve them. And Ganpati, as the sort of deity that is most physically present in the world, he's the gatekeeper of all of this. Until and unless you don't achieve certain things in your life, until and unless you don't enjoy the treasure of that particular desire that you have, you're not going to be able to move past it. And so,
So why
yeah,
why most of the spiritual tradition and religion, they say that the problem is, when it comes to liberation, the problem
material.
is desire. Yeah. How do you look at it?
I don't know. I think it's a misinterpretation of texts. But if you look at non-dual
Hmm.
traditions, your guru, my guru, all of them, like Sri Vidya as a path, is about experiencing auspiciousness as we are. There's like have you heard of the terms pravriti and nivriti?
Yes.
Pravriti is provriti. It's being
Hmm.
indulgent of your sort of world, around you. It's
Pro-
very Rahuvian.
yeah,
Yeah,
procreation.
it's
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
Rahuvian in nature when you think about it.
Yeah.
But it's only when you're
Yeah.
able to really examine things from a physical perspective, you're able to move past them. If you've fulfilled one desire, of course, like the desires are endless. That's when like Ketu comes into play, right? Is to go back to the source of what your true happiness is. What is it ultimately that you already have, that you're not enjoying, that you're ignoring in pursuit of that other thing? That's why Ketu is moksha karka.
So can we say, when you say Ketu is moksha karka, the moksha is more about that you have already done it. Now enough is enough. You have to stop somewhere, and you better try exploring something which you haven't done yet. And that's why Ketu is also associated with your past life, detachment. Why detachment? Because you have already
Yeah.
done it.
Everything we desire in life, we can have it. But it's all Ketu is also the understanding and the knowing that we've lived all of these lives before. I've been a beggar, I've been the king, I've had this much money, I've had all of those desires. You can want things, but to go crazy about it, and like that's when Rahu gets imbalanced, right? When you're so mentally drawn to that thing, you forget to look at where you are right now. You're not being realistic. If one day some
So when
yeah, sorry.
so the question was, when it comes to desire, what is the true desire? I use a term called foreign desire and your own true desire, which is close to swadharma and paradharma, the idea of swadharma and paradharma. How do you differentiate this? Like, for example, if I have a Rahu in my third house in Scorpio, because I'm Virgo ascendant, which makes Ketu in ninth house in Taurus. Yeah, let's talk about this axis to explain Rahu and Ketu.
Yeah, because generally it's the opposite that works, right? Ketu does really well in Scorpio, and Scorpio is what it's change. It is movement. It is also the place where Sun suffers. Sun suffers in Scorpio. It's because that period of time is when it's autumn, right? So the sun is clouded, the mind is completely clouded. But Ketu does really well in that area. Ketu is flexibility. It is able to, actually in yoga also hyper flexibility, hyper mobility is associated with Ketu. And so to me, Ketu, when we look at it in Rahu in the third house and Ketu in the ninth house, you have that desire to, learn things. Number one is that debate with people, get to know their perspective, know different perspectives, which is great. But your grounding comes from that spiritual practice that you do, is to follow that, like those simple principles of life. You might not be very drawn to like doing puja or doing like any kind of ritualistic practice, but you might be drawn to like learning itself as a ritual for you, knowing.
So why I'm not drawn to these things? Why? Because I have already done it in my past lives and I don't need to do it.
Some people are just not drawn to ritual like that. And also when you look at Ketu's position in the ninth house is like the orthodox parts of religion. It's to go to the temple every single day and do this and do that. Actually, it was only during my Ketu Dasha, which started like a few months ago, Ketu Antardasha, is when I stopped. I was just like, I don't want to go to any temples anymore. First of all, in India, temples are just horrible in terms of condition. But also I realized like, I'm just going there to see something that's within. And so Ketu is like that. You're not identifying that treasure that's already within. That's why they say, like, it's such a beautiful saying in Hinduism that Devi goes and hides in your Muladhara chakra because she knows you're not going to look at her. You're not going to look for her within you. You're always going to seek outwards.
Outside.
But she's like right here. That is Ketu. You don't identify the treasure you have. But once you do, you can live your life in a much productive way, and Rahu also gets direction that way.
Right.
So when we look at the Mahavidya perspective, Ketu is often associated with Dhumavati, and Rahu is associated with Chindamastha, looked at Chinnamasta's imagery?
Yeah, I have seen that. The blood comes out
Her head is
from
cut
tongue,
off.
something like that, right? Yeah, yeah, head is cut out. Yeah, so the blood is coming
So
from
these
there.
two
Okay, yeah,
deities
yes.
are actually just remediation for Rahu, the opposite thing. Dhumavati is the remediation for Ketu. Dhuma means dua, or like incense, or
Yeah.
anything that rises, right? Something needs to be super light in order for it to rise and disperse. It just needs to go. That is what Ketu is, heaviness. Ketu, her form is of a widow. A widow has no possessions. She has nothing.
Hmm. Yes, yes.
Chindamasta, on the other hand, she's standing on top of Kama and Rati. Like if you look at the imagery, she's standing on top of Kama and Rati. She's the one that remediates Ketu as Rahu, as the imagery. The goddess is related to Rahu.
Hmm.
So it's very fascinating how these two they'll always have an interplay. Rahu and Ketu cannot be separated or
Yes.
like discussed in a separate way. In your past life with
Yeah.
Ketu in Taurus, there was like you had many resources, physical resources to do puja. Doing puja takes so much. Doing like a 16-step puja, Shodash Upchar puja, what it's called, it takes up so much of your time. It takes up so much of your money. 64, the Upchar Puja takes more time, more money, more resources. All of these things take physical resources. But now all of your knowledge
Yeah.
or all of your like sort of energy goes into knowing the esoteric. That thing that cannot be defined. That is what Scorpio is. It's constantly changing. It is never the same. You've already had the pleasure
I
of Ketu.
Yeah. Yeah, I have experience. I have experienced this thing with Ketu. Then people generally associate Ketu just with one word, detachment, but there is one more perspective to it, which is, as you already mentioned, if Ketu is in Taurus, that means in your past life you had the resources, which is Taurus, and when it comes to buying a cloth or any premium or subscription, I always prefer the luxury, right? Like, sometimes my wife and my friend, they ask me, it's like, why, how come you have premium service for anything, right? When it comes to YouTube, and I'm like, I don't know. I just don't like to, have a disturbance when I'm watching a podcast or something
Yeah.
like that. And I always prefer to go for the premium version of anything. And I never had the answer to that. But when I realized, okay, Ketu being in Taurus also means that there are few things I just prefer. I mean, I'm not having a strong desire towards those things, but if I can afford, my preference is going to be, luxury and all those things because of placement of Ketu in a certain zodiac sign or a house. So that part is missing. Most of the time, people don't talk about that part of Ketu.
Yeah.
That it also dominates your preference.
It's a very interesting planet when we really think about it. More interesting than Rahu. But they're both of the same body, essentially, so it doesn't really change anything. But yeah, Ketu is it's it's the treasure, it's the past life knowledge, all of those things, and it's also, to me, it's the flag, right? It's the dhwaja of astrology.
Yeah.
It's the thing what represents who you truly are in a lot of ways. That's why, like, when people are around, when you're around like the closest people in your life, your Ketu really does come out. When you're in like a public facing field, or when you're in talking to different people, or if you're talking to someone who is really out there, they don't know who you are within. It really circles back to the first planet that we talked about.
Let's start Mercury.
Okay. So when I think of Mercury, I only think of Devi Lalita Tripur Sundari, or like Bala Tripur Sundari, because they are mercurial goddesses. In fact, a lot of like these very beautiful goddesses we see in Hinduism are very chanchal in nature. Chanchal means swift, or they're moving, or they're, little moody. And I associate that quality to Mercury itself. Mercury is like I think like Carl Jung said in Liber Novus or something that God is just a child with a lot of imagination. It's such a beautiful sentiment when we look at it, because deep down, like a lot of us are like, when we want to reach that godlike state, we are becoming like children. When we surrender,
Right.
or when we like bow down to deities, when we like pray,
Yeah.
we are. It's like playing with dolls, right? That little sort of deity on your altar or anything. It's like a doll, and you're just playing with it. You're communicating with it. And so that idea of Mercury and play, I find very fascinating. When we look at Jupiter, Jupiter is ritual. He's the priest, right? He's doing big havans, he's doing yagya, he's doing sacrifice and everything. But Mercury is like how God comes to play with us in our regular day-to-day lives. So there's different parts of sadhana. Some people do chitra upasana, which means to paint images of God. And so I find like children's approach in general towards deities, towards like something bigger than them, it's so curious, it's so naturally like, it's so natural to them, and it's something that is so pure in nature. That's why Mercury is like unadulterated. It's like completely pure. It is playful. It is joyful because of that. That's why also they say that Mercury, whenever it's sitting with a certain planet, it takes on the traits of that planet. So if you have Mercury with Rahu, Mercury becomes slight, your speech becomes a little bit like that. If you have Mercury with Sun, you get Buddha Aditya Yoga, you have very influential speech. Mercury and Sun together, it's Lalita Devi and Matangi Devi, because she's the Sun Mahavidya. So your speech becomes super influential. You are intelligent in the way you think. Mercury and Jupiter, all of that. Mercury and Jupiter is very interesting.
I have that. I have Mercury Sun and then exchange of Mercury Jupiter. Yeah.
Yeah, Mercury Jupiter is very interesting because Jupiter is the father that stepped up for Mercury, right? Moon abandons Mercury, and then Jupiter is the father that takes care of Mercury. And so I find that concept very interesting, and with especially with like how playful we can be in our lives on a day-to-day basis. Like you said, that your sadhana is never the same. It's very intuitive in nature. It's very childlike in nature. You have that Jupiter in Virgo. Without thinking too much, there might be like an intelligence to it naturally. That's why it's related to, like, Mercury is related to the study of hermetics. And the number one principle, hermetics has to do a lot with mentalism and the principle of as above, so below. So you're getting direct sort of a download from gods above to do certain things. It might be like a random...
Based on what? Based on what placement you are saying?
Just the Mercury's presence. So
In
you
general,
have that Jupiter Virgo connection in your first house. That gnosis is coming very naturally. When we look at children, they come up with like weird sayings, or they come up with weird things. Where is this coming from? You ask your child.
So in this the past life remembrance stuff, like if you study the research of hypnotherapy, I'm saying, or spiritual tradition, they say the kids between the age of 2 to 7, they tend to remember their past lives.
Yeah.
Mercury.
That is Mercury. Because Mercury, so in Greek mythology, Mercury is the only, Hermes is the only deity that can cross through hell, heaven and earth. He's the messenger deity, right? He can carry messages from all three realms. Even when we look at Tripura Sundari, people are like, oh, she's the most beautiful, she's the beauty of the three worlds, she's the most beautiful of the three worlds. What are the three worlds? Past, present, future. Hell, heaven, earth is just one part of it, but everything is in threes. Past, present, future. Then we have our sleeping, waking and dream state. We get messages from those things as well. We have our previous lives. We have our future lives. There's a study that was done on prayer. How something about like prayers affecting past lives and prayers affecting future lives. So this group prayed for a group of cancer patients in the future, and it had a miraculous effect. That's why the word is so important. So when we say Jupiter is sound, Mercury is sound refined. It is sound like that becomes into when we look at Kashmiri Shaivism, or when we look at the Tattva chart, the 36 Tattvas, there is sound, of course, and then there is the letters, the matrikas that come from that sound. When sound becomes refined, when speech becomes refined. They even say this about babies, that when babies babble, they're talking in like languages we might not even think of. How's this Indian baby speaking in French? They babble in a way that they understand. It crosses that language barrier.
So I read somewhere, I think, I think that the one article I shared with you where they did some study on psychedelics, and they say that human, based on their environment, they pick certain language, but
Yeah.
the template of human language is already there in them. That's Mercury,
Yeah.
right?
And so, in my tradition, every morning when we do our Sandhya, right, the one thing they ask us to do is also chant the Sanskrit matrikas, because Sanskrit is the language that has all the sounds encompassed in the 50 to 54 letters that are there. So you chant them straight and then you chant them in reverse,
Hmm.
which is very interesting,
Why?
which relates to the
What
point of
happens?
retrograde we were talking about. To retrace everything, go back, and Mercury retrograde is going on right now. So it's very fascinating how Mercury is related to speech, and like children are like sponges. They absorb things so quickly.
100%. I get so surprised with my toddler. I'm like, how is she catching up these words? I don't even remember when did I use this word. Maybe sometimes I use one word just once, right? And she knows next time very precisely in what sentence, when she's forming sentence, she plays that word very nicely, perfectly there. And I'm like amazed with this intelligence, that how, as you know, how they absorb so much so quickly, and how they improvise on that. That intelligence is mind boggling. Like that template which is working in the background is something, I think only astrology is giving me that language, that okay, what exactly happening there. And when you are talking about Mercury, the only thing is going on in my mind is just my toddler, what she has been doing, because that whole description fits really well on her.
I think it's so, like when you study children or when you have a child around 8, it's so easy to understand mercurial nature, because children are archetypes of Mercury. They learn things very quickly.
Yes.
They will say things that are so absurd, and again, like you go like, where is this coming from? I was going through this thread on Reddit once where this mother asked, like, has your child ever said that I'm your mom that has come to you? And there were plenty of parents who would say that my child has said that they were my grandmom, they were my great grandmom, they were my mother who's passed away. And it's truly so heartwarming that we are just souls just recycling within different bodies.
Yeah. My daughter exactly does the same thing. She's like, most of the time is like, I am Soma Mama. Her name is Soma, so she says, I am Soma Mama, right? And they definitely drop many clues. And one of the book I earlier mentioned, David Wilcock, he says those cultures and those parents, they don't believe in reincarnation. They're missing on opportunities to understand what their kids are actually talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So again, this esoteric knowledge, the idea of astrological framework to dissect the nature of the reality, it gives you that framework to understand what is happening in your surrounding. And in the absence of these frameworks, you think everything is random, nothing magical is taking place. But see, when you apply this framework, every day you see a lot of magic out there.
Yeah, and I also feel like that's what the grace of Mercury is, right? It's to just play and find out. The saying in English, fuck around and find out, that's very mercurial in nature. It's
Hmm.
to go
I
and
do
do
that.
it's to go and do the thing, and then you eventually find out what is happening, and then you look at the framework, and then you can actually master it. That's how Shishya goes to Guru. Shishya becomes the Guru with that principle. And when as we're talking about Guru and Shishya, so in like any tradition, the Guru, the Shishya, and the God or the deity that they're worshipping, they're all the same, just expanded out. They're just physical in nature,
Hmm.
which as an idea
Yeah.
is so wonderful because you see threes everywhere. Three is the number related to Guru, but you see it in Tripura. Three is also related to Mercury for that, in that sense.
Hmm. Yes. Yes. Now I can see the hidden message in this Navgar Puran, that why Guru becomes stepfather of Mercury.
He's
Right.
just
Yes.
he's been through that. The Guru is someone who's traveled that journey of a Shishya, and so they've traveled it multiple times. It's not just once and then you reach your destination. The Guru has
Hmm.
seen the different perspective, different ways to traverse this journey. And when
Yes.
you have the
Yes. Yes.
Guru's support, the Shishya can traverse the journey very easily.
Hmm.
But the Shishya also needs to be like a sponge to absorb what the Guru is truly saying.
You know what? Recently, I was describing intention to someone, and my definition of intention was that once you establish the intention, then whatever information available in the quantum field, it works like a magnet. That intention works like a magnet to catch it.
Right.
The information is Mercury, and the intention is Guru.
Yeah, 100%. Mercury brings those messages from different lifetimes, different like realms to you. I don't know if you've heard like there's divination methods that are so strange. Sometimes I'd be thinking about something and I'd go and I was just like, why am I mulling over this? I'd hear the message in a song. I'd just go take my walk and have my headphones on and like I play a random song and the message
Yeah.
is right there.
No, that happens with me very often. Very often it happens. So I relate to that. Yes, yes. And see, I'm Virgo ascendant ruled by Mercury, so I can relate whatever you are saying with Mercury.
I think Mercury is also very neutral. It's like a really good planet, and so it's in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and it's everywhere else as well. Like neutrality opens you up to so many opportunities, and it opens you up to so many different perspectives. If you are too biased about something, you're never going to truly learn. That's why children, when they go into schools or when they go into kindergarten, or even like us as adults, when we go into learning something, we have to start with like a complete fresh, open mind, fresh slate, all of those things. We can't go in there with our biases. We might never be able to contemplate on those teachings completely. And so Mercury is a great student that for that in that sort of line of thinking where it is so neutral. It's the nervous system, right? When the nervous system is neutral, you're able to see things with a lot of clarity. Narayana Mandal, the name is Narayana Mandal for the nervous system. So it's related to Narayana as well. Vishnu is
Yeah.
very relaxed, very neutral. He's sleeping 6 months of the year.
Yeah.
But with Vishnu comes Lakshmi. Venus naturally comes where your Mercury is stable. When you're neutral, when you're sort of using your speech effectively. Because many people talk a lot, but they don't really mean anything they say, or they don't say anything meaningful.
Hmm.
So Venus just follows where Mercury is. I don't know if you've heard the story of Hermaphrodite.
No, I didn't.
So there's this very interesting story of how hermaphrodites or intersex people are born in according to Greek mythology, where they said that Hermes was once bathing in a pond. He was just like enjoying himself, and Aphrodite was so drawn to this youthful man, and she was so in love with him that she jumped into the pond with him, and she united with him, and they became one body. So there's that principle. Mercury is also the only planet that's Svaprakasha, self-illumined. because Mercury is
How?
also, yeah, it only exalts in its own sign. No other planet does that.
Right, Virgo. Yes. Hmm.
So Mercury is also that principle of Ardhanarishwara that you see, man and woman together, hermaphrodite.
Hmm. One thing I have realized, trying to cover 9 planets in one day was not a good idea because I thought Mercury is the last one, but Sun and Moon
I still love.
still remain. Right? So we'll do one more session. We'll cover Sun and Moon, right? Again, because I think we need that.